Spanish art has been an important contributor to Western art, and Spain has produced many famous and influential artists including Velázquez, Goya and Picasso. Spanish art was particularly influenced by Italy and France during the Baroque and Neoclassical periods, but Spanish art has often had very distinctive characteristics, partly explained by the Moorish heritage in Spain, and through the political and cultural climate in Spain during the Counter-Reformation and the subsequent eclipse of Spanish power under the Bourbon dynasty. The prehistoric art of Spain had many important periods. It was one of the main centers of European Upper Paleolithic art and the rock art of the Spanish Levant in the subsequent periods. In the Iron Age, northwestern Spain was the center for Celtic art, and Iberian sculpture has a distinct style, partly influenced by coastal Greek settlements. Spain was conquered by the Romans by 200 BC. In Rome was rather smoothly replaced by the Germanic Visigoths in the 5th century AD, who represented only a small ruling class who soon Christianized. The relatively few remains of Visigothic art and architecture show an attractive and distinct version of wider European trends, but the Muslim conquest of most of Spain in the 8th century was a massive disruption and transformation. Over the following centuries, the wealthy courts of Al-Andalus produced many works of exceptional quality, culminating in the Alhambra in Granada, right at the end of Muslim Spain. Meanwhile, the parts of Spain remaining Christian, or that were reconquered, were prominent in pre-Romanesque and Romanesque art, especially in Catalonia. Late Gothic Spanish art flourished under the unified monarchy in the Isabelline Gothic and Plateresque styles, and the already strong traditions in painting and sculpture began to benefit from the influence of imported Italian artists. The enormous wealth that followed the flood of American gold or lavish spending on the arts in Spain, much of it directed at religious art in the Counter-Reformation. Spanish control of the leading center of North European art, Flanders, from 1483, and also of the Kingdom of Naples from 1548, both ending in 1714, had a great influence on Spanish art, and the level of spending attracted artists from other areas, such as El Greco, Rubens and Titian in the Spanish Golden Age, as well as great native painters such as Diego Velázquez, José de Ribera, Francisco Zurbarán and Bartolomé Esteban Murillo. Spanish Baroque architecture has survived in large quantity, and has both strains marked by exuberant extravagance, as in the Churrigueresque style, and a rather severe classicism, as in the work of Juan de Herrera. It was generally the former which marked the emerging art and Spanish colonial architecture of the Spanish Empire outside Europe, as in Latin America, while the Baroque churches of the Philippines are simpler. The decline of the Habsburg monarchy brought this period to an end, and Spanish art in the 18th and early 19th century was generally less exciting, with the huge exception of Francisco Goya. The rest of 19th century Spanish art followed European trends, generally at a conservative pace, until the Catalan movement of modernisme, which initially was more a form of Art Nouveau. Picasso dominates Spanish modernism in the usual English sense, but Juan Gris, Salvador Dali and Joan Miró are other leading figures. Ancient Iberia. The early Iberians have left many remains. Northern western Spain shares with southwestern France the region where the richest Upper Paleolithic art in Europe is found in the Cave of Altamira and other sites where there are cave paintings made between 35,000 and 11,000 BC. The rock art of the Iberian Mediterranean basin is from the eastern side of Spain, probably dating from about 8,3500 BC, and shows animal and hunting scenes often developed with a growing feeling for the whole composition of a large scene. Portugal, in particular, is rich in megalithic monuments, including the Almenda's cromlech, and Iberian schematic art is stone sculpture, petroglyphs and cave paintings from the early Metal Ages, found all over the Iberian Peninsula, with both geometric patterns, but also a high usage of simple pictogram-like human figures than is typical of comparable art from other areas. The casco de lero, a late Bronze Age gold ritual helmet, may relate to other golden hats found in Germany, and the treasure of Villena is a huge hoard of geometrically decorated vessels and jewelry, perhaps from the 10th century BC, including 10 kilos of gold. Iberian sculpture before the Roman occupation reflects the contacts with other advanced ancient cultures who set up small coastal colonies, including the Greeks and Phoenicians. The Sarkalita Phoenician settlement on Ibiza has survived to be excavated, where most now lie under large towns, and the Lady of Guadama was excavated from another Phoenician site. The Lady of Elche possibly represents Stanit, but also shows Hellenistic influence, as do the 6th century Sphinx of Agast and Bish of Balasote. The bulls of Gaisando are the most impressive examples of Veracos, which are large Celtiberian animal sculptures in stone. The 5th century BC bull of Osuna is a more developed single example. Some decorated falcata, the distinctive curving Iberian sword, have survived, and large numbers of bronze statuettes used as votive offerings. The Romans gradually conquered all of Iberia between 218 BC and 19 AD. As elsewhere in the Western Empire, the Roman occupation largely overwhelmed native styles. Iberia was an important agricultural area for the Romans, and the elite acquired vast estates producing wheat, olives and wine. With some later emperors coming from the Iberian provinces, many huge villas have been excavated. The aqueduct of Segovia, Roman walls of Lugard, Alcantara Bridge, and the Tower of Hercules lighthouse are among a number of well-preserved major monuments. Impressive remains of Roman engineering, if not always art. Roman temples survive fairly complete at Vic, Evora, and Alcantara, as well as elements in Barcelona and Córdoba. There must have been local workshops producing the high-quality mosaics found, though most of the better freestanding sculpture was probably imported. The Missorium of Theodosius I is an important late antique silver dish that was found in Spain but was probably made in Constantinople. Early medieval. The Christianized Visigoths ruled Iberia after the collapse of the empire, and the rich 7th century treasure of Guarazá, probably deposited to avoid looting in the Muslim conquest of Spain, is now a unique survival of Christian votive crowns in gold. Though Spanish in style, the form was probably then used by elites across Europe. Other Visigothic art in the form of metalwork, mostly jewelry and buckles, and stone reliefs, survives to give an idea of the culture of this originally barbarian Germanic people, who kept themselves very largely separate from their Iberian subjects, and whose rule crumbled when the Muslims arrived in 711. The jeweled crux, Gemeta Victory Cross, low-carve Bible and the agate casket of Oviedo as survivals from the 9th-10th century of the rich pre-Romanesque culture of the Asturias region in northwestern Spain, which remained under Christian rule. The Santa Maria del Naranco banqueting house overlooking Oviedo, completed in 848 and later surviving as a church, is a unique survival in Europe. The Codex Vigilanus, completed in 976 in the region of Rioja, shows a complex mixture of several styles. Muslim and Mozarab Spain. The extraordinary palace city of Medina Azahara near Córdoba was built in the 10th century for the Umayyad caliphs of Córdoba, intended as the capital of Islamic Andalus, and is still being excavated. A considerable amount of the highly sophisticated decoration of the main buildings has survived, showing the enormous wealth of this very centralized state. The palace at Al-Jafaria is later, from after Islamic Spain split into a number of kingdoms. Famous examples of Islamic architecture and its decoration of the Cathedral Mosque of Córdoba, whose Islamic elements were added in stages between 784 and 987, and the Alhambra and Generalife palaces in Granada from the final periods of Muslim Spain. The Pisa Griffin is the largest known Islamic sculpture of an animal, and the most spectacular of a group of such figures from Al-Andalus, many made to hold up the basins of fountains, or in smaller cases as perfume burners and the like. The Christian population of Muslim Spain developed a style of Mozarabic art whose best-known survivals are a series of illuminated manuscripts. Several of the commentaries on the Book of Revelation by the Asturian St. Beatus of Liébana, which gave subject matter that allowed the brightly colored primitivist style full scope to demonstrate its qualities in manuscripts of the 10th century like the Morgan Beatus, probably the earliest, the Girona Beatus, Escorial Beatus and the St. Sever Beatus, which was actually produced some distance from Muslim rule in France. Mozarabic elements, including a background of brightly colored strips, can be seen in some later Romanesque frescoes. Hispano-Moresque ware pottery began in the south, presumably mainly for local markets, but Muslim potters were later encouraged to migrate to the Valencia region, where the Christian lords marketed the luxury lusterwares to elites all over Christian Europe in the 14th and 15th centuries, including the popes and the English court. Spanish Islamic ivory carving and textiles were also very fine. The continuing industries producing tiles and carpets in the peninsula owe their origins largely to the Islamic kingdoms. After the expulsion of the Islamic rulers during the Reconquista, considerable Muslim populations, and Christian craftsmen trained in Muslim styles, remained in Spain. Amadea is the term for work in art and architecture produced by such people. The Madeira architecture of Aragon is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the 14th-century Patio de las Doncellas built for Peter of Castile in the Alcazar of Seville is another outstanding example. The style could harmonize well with Christian European medieval and Renaissance styles, for example in elaborate wooden stucco ceilings. Amadea work often continued to be produced for some centuries after an area passed to Christian rule.